Oisin Leech, an exceptional singer from Ireland, has once again captivated audiences with his latest album, Cold Sea. This stunning collection of songs is a masterful blend of heartfelt lyrics and enchanting melodies, each piece echoing the raw beauty and depth of the natural beauty and wonder of Ireland. Cold Sea takes listeners on an aural journey through the emotional landscapes of love, loss, hope. His evocative voice serves as both a guide and a companion, leading us through each track with sincerity that resonates deeply. Every song in Cold Sea feels like a carefully crafted story, painting vivid pictures that reach the musical shores of our hearts. Whether you're already a fan or new to his work, Cold Sea is bound to leave a lasting impression on you, reminding us of the timeless connection between music and the human experience. Dive in, let the wave of Oisin's melodies carry you away. Let's welcome him to Surprise Cast. Hello, my friend. How are you?
How you doing, William? Great to be on the show.
I am doing absolutely well. Cold Sea. Let's take a quick dive. I just want you to tell the listeners what has been the response to this remarkable debut album.
Yeah, no, it's been really good fun the last few months. It came out in March this year, 2024. Put the first song out last October, and then the album came out in March. And I've been having great fun touring it and meeting people along the way who are connecting with the music. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
But before we kind of launch into the album discussion, I want to retrace our steps here. And I want to build this conversation around three pillars: family, impactful experiences, friendships, and then your body of work. And this all stems from a book called Build the Life You Want, written by Arthur C. Brooks and Oprah Winfrey. So let's get started. Tell us, how did some of your childhood experiences mold your interest in music? And you can include parents, relatives, teachers. And then, if you wouldn't mind telling the listeners, how did growing up in Navan, Ireland, shape you? So those are two-pronged questions.
Yeah, so I was lucky that music surrounded my youth completely. My grandmother lived in a place called Donegal up north, and she worked and lived in a old 1950s dance hall called the Plaza. It has the old spring floor from the 1950s where the show bands played. So every day a different show band would come through, and my grandmother would literally be making them tea and listening to them soundcheck and seeing all these bands come through. And then when she grew up to have my mom and her family, she would always be sitting in the corner of the house playing piano. So I have these childhood memories of these wonderful melodies coming from the family piano. So we would be playing at the window in Donegal, summer times, Christmas times, any holiday times. Actually, we were always going to Donegal, where Cold Sea was made, and so that's my most that memory is the one that affects me the most. It's hearing these melodies. My grandmother obviously was alive, in wartime, 40s, the 50s. She would play Marx Brothers. She would play Glenn Campbell. She would play the old Irish melodies. She had a really beautiful singing voice, which my mom inherited and my sister. So that's the predominant memory of kind of growing up around family. And where I live where I grew up is actually closer to Dublin, more down south. A beautiful place called County Meath, Navan. But in many ways, my music seems to have come from Donegal. It's from those memories of my grandmother. And then on my dad's side, I was very lucky that they're full of music too. record collectors. I've got some Bob Dylan records that my uncles bought in the '70s when they first came out, and I had an uncle, Richard Ahern, who acted with Humphrey Bogart. So there was a lot of theater. He lived in Los Angeles. He's in that film called Sahara. He plays the tank driver with Humphrey Bogart, and Humphrey Bogart was his best man at the wedding. And so on my dad's side, there's a lot of singing. My dad has a beautiful singing voice too. So growing up as a kid, that's my main memory, just of being completely surrounded by music, theater, the arts. But it was never pushed on us. It was kind of just let dangle or let kind of be around us. And if we showed an interest in it, fantastic.
This upbringing that you had with music constantly flowing in and out of your ears, whether it be from your dad's side, your grandmother, what you just described to me reminds me of a gentleman named Alton Conlon. And he released an album called The Starlight Ballroom. Have you heard of this? So it kind of gives me this image of all these people celebrating the power of music in this small community coming together. And it sounds like that played an instrumental role in the early seeds of you enjoying music, correct?
Yeah. So when I first started playing guitar with my cousins in Donegal, we would learn Beck songs by Beck, and Nirvana. We love Nirvana. We love Nirvana Unplugged, and we found it fascinating that Kurt Cobain covered this Lead Belly song, "In the Pines, Where Did You Sleep Last Night?" So I actually went to the library and got The Life and Legend of Lead Belly book, and I read that, and that led me on to Woody Guthrie and Bob Dylan. A school pal of mine named Alan gave me a Bob Dylan record when I was 16, and it was just kind of when I was 13, 14, 15, I was a huge Clash fan. I had a punk band called The Vermin. We would play in our garage. We were totally obsessed by punk rock, and I still love punk rock bands like Fugazi. And but then hearing Bob Dylan's Freewheelin' record was the record that I remember hearing it for the first time and just bursting out laughing. I found it very funny. It was almost like Charlie Chaplin wandering through this freezing cold New York with a tiny jacket on, with a guitar. And there was something very powerful about this completely stripped back sound, So it was very minimal, but really powerful. And then, of course, when you get into Dylan's music and hear all his records, it opens up a whole universe.
As you were absorbing all of this music, and you mentioned a few artists, being a Dylan fan myself and learning that you're a Dylan fan, is there a particular time period that is kind of in your wheelhouse of appreciation? Is it his earlier stuff? Is it in the middle? Where are we looking at here?
So I go through phases. I love his recent stuff. I mean, I love I Contain Multitudes and Murder Most Foul. And I love the 3 records he did of covering the old American songbook, of the old Sinatra song tunes, those old classics, like his Triplicate album, Shadows in the Night. My wife and I went to see him in the Royal Albert Hall in London when he toured Shadows in the Night, and I think he performed Autumn Leaves, and it was stunning. So I love all Dylan's periods. I love his early work. Of course, is completely groundbreaking. But then I love Slow Train Coming. And Modern Times that might be 2005 is one of my favorite records. Tony Garnier's bass playing on that record is just, he's always had a great band, but I love his current touring band, the one he's been with for recently, and Charlie Sexton, Larry Campbell, all of that period around 2001, 2002 was wonderful too. So I think that's the interesting thing about being a Dylan fan, is that you can dip in and out of his whole career depending on what your mood you're in, and you're going to find gold.
Was there a particular concert at a young age that you witnessed, observed, that really, blew the socks off you and kind of left you feeling, wow, I kind of want to do what they're doing? For me, it was The Cure, 1987, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me tour. I walked away from that show, 13 years old, 14. I was like, I was gobsmacked.
I think it would be seeing Van Morrison in the Olympia in Dublin. I saved up enough for a ticket, but the only ticket I could afford was way in the heavens. So I was on the top floor, and he performed Georgia on My Mind, and he did this thing with the band where he used his hand to bring them way low in volume, and then he brought them up slowly, and it was just one of those concert moments that have really stayed with me. I thought that's amazing. And then I saw Dylan perform Spirit on the Water in Wembley in London. I remember being at that show and just thinking that was amazing. And when he falls into his harmonica solo, just magic.
As you were developing your chops, sharpening your talons as a musician, if you will, was there a particular breakthrough moment that moved the needle one groove over for you in terms of becoming a musician?
It's interesting. Yeah, you kind of busking on the streets. I lived in Liverpool. I played music on the street. Started in Grafton Street. I studied English and film and literature and theatre in Trinity in Dublin. And I would go to my lectures in the morning most of the time, and then I would go busking in the afternoon. And I think it was busking, playing on the street. It was that kind of immediate feeling where you're in front of an audience immediately. And if you're connecting with the audience, you'll get a little crowd. And it was learning to keep that crowd. And I bought I got a harmonica brace, and then bought a little conference microphone, really cheap little microphone. I clipped it to my harmonica brace and used that as a mic through an amp. And I had a friend from Naples called Massimo who played drums, and a buddy from Oxford, Ned, who played bass. So I think that was the moment where it was like, yeah, this playing music on the street to people, that was really fantastic.
How did your parents feel that you were doing that?
I think I've been lucky in that they've kind of just let me do my thing. You know, I've been lucky in that they both really appreciate art and music, and now they've, as my career has progressed, and I'm, they're happy.
And was there a particular song or two that really captivated the onlookers that you could play and go, yeah, I kind of have them in the palm of my hand for this one?
It's interesting. I mean, well, I can talk directly about this new album that I've just put out. October Sun and Color of the Rain, two songs that really seem to, well, now later in my musical career when I'm playing venues, whether it's Union Chapel in London, where I play in October, or Vicar Street, or a Sugar Club we played in Dublin recently. It's when October Sun, Color of the Rain seem to be songs that really connect. And Trobrega Bay as well.
Before we move into the next part of this conversation, I just want to know a little bit more of a background to your connection, your relationship with your parents, and what do you possess in yourself that you could say kind of an attribute or two that has helped your career?
Yeah, I think it's that love of music and culture, being open to a good book or a good film or a good piece of theatre or good art. It's that an appreciation of narrative and of storytelling. I mean, the Irish are natural storytellers. If in this part of the world, for some reason, it's something connected to our history. I think we have become very, gifted. We've got some of the best storytellers that ever were. From whether it's Kavanagh or Joyce or Beckett or Yeats or Heaney, Paul Muldoon. We're very lucky, singers like Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah, I was actually just going to ask you a question about that. With the loss of Sinead O'Connor, did that impact you? And if so, how?
Well, she's funny enough. I played her on my radio show, Caravan Radio. I played her about a year before she passed. Yeah, I mean, everyone was moved by her passing. I didn't know her personally. I just was a huge fan of her music. I mean, she was a remarkable artist, and her singing is just phenomenal. And yeah, and like her, like Sinead, and like Shane McGowan, that was another kind of huge loss in Ireland that everyone is still feeling.
Yeah, truly one of a kind. Yeah. So I don't know if you've read this book. It's called Bono in Conversation. Um, and I'm going to segue into our next uh, part of this talk. And in the book, Bono talks about um, people that have inspired him and helped him along the way. And I want to know from you, who has been a staunch supporter of your work as a musician, and how have they supported you?
Yeah, I would say my school buddies. I've got a couple of school buddies. One in particular, Alan, who I meet up with, every so often, and maybe play him some new songs. We might, because he was the one that used to, when we were in college and we were all punk fans. He's the one that would come into the library and say, "Here's the Buffy band. Here's Donal Lunny. Here's Planksty. Here's Rory Gallagher. Here's David Bowie. Here's Townes Van Zandt." So I'm hearing these people for the first time from Alan. So he's someone that has been a huge support, and so every time he's home, whether it be Christmas or he's someone I reconnect with. But other than that, I've been quite a solitary rambler. I kind of music has been my touchstone.
What about any music teachers along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. I studied cello for a little while and was lucky enough to have a great teacher. And there was a local guitar teacher when I was growing up in Meath called Joe. He was great. I remember he taught me some Brian Adams licks starting. But I taught myself. I taught myself harmonica and essentially just I got 2 guitar lessons and that was it. That's it. And everything else I'm just self-taught from listening to music.
Okay. I'd like to know, if you don't mind sharing, what is some great advice you picked up along the way from people in the music business that you find very valuable and helpful?
Yeah, okay. So that's when you're a touring musician, I think it's important that once you do a gig, don't dwell on that concert. Of course, celebrate it if it was a great concert, but if you're worried about that concert, or don't dwell on it, think to the next show immediately. I think that's important, especially for young musicians. If you've learned something in that show, bring it to the next show. or if you've learned something from that show, uh, don't dwell on it in a negative way. Just think immediately to the next show. And then I would say beyond the lives, that at the moment the world is so crazy at the moment with there's so many voices to be heard at the same time. But focus on your music. Ultimately, that's all that matters. Your songs, your performance, and your own personal connection to your music. That's nurture that above all else.
I like that advice, even though I'm not a musician. But with performing, is that something you really enjoy doing? Do you still get nervous energy? Tell us about that.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, whether I'm playing to 5 people or 1,000 people, I will. You always get that pre-show, nerves, and it's a good thing because I think when you're a little bit nervous, or even if the audience pick up that you're a little bit nervous, it means that you care. It means that you're not taking it for granted, and that gives the whole thing an edge. And so, yeah, no, absolutely. And I still love playing live. I played just the other day. I played up north of Belfast, a place called Bangor, and I really enjoyed that concert. I think it's really important to relax before a show. To really just sit and be, and not to overthink it. And that takes, bizarrely, that takes a little bit of practice. And you can't really control how a show goes. You've just got to see because you can do your bit on stage, but then it's up to the audience to respond.
I've seen footage of some of your performances, and with, in particular with music from the Cold Sea, the tempo isn't, punk rock, anything like that. So I want to know, with kind of that slower pace experience for the audience, how do you know you're connecting to them?
Yeah, I think something happens in a room, where you can tell, you can usually read a little bit of what's going on, and then, but then sometimes you've just got to connect yourself to the feeling of the music, and give it the best you can give. And like a concert is all about communication, you're trying to communicate your song, and then after the concerts, when you meet, you might, if you want, go down to meet people. It's always interesting to get feedback from people, fans. But as a performer, the most important thing is, and in music, is the feeling. It's the you know you've got to connect with the song you're singing, and give it, perform it in as true a way as you can.
This is wonderful. We're going to wrap up the second part of this conversation, and we're going to move into the third and final part. This is the body of your work. And before we explore Cold Sea, I want to read a quote to you from a book written by a gentleman by the name of Rick Rubin. It's called The Creative Act of Way of Being. And I'm going to read you this quote and respond however you like. He says, "No matter what tools you use to create, the true instrument is you. And through you, the universe that surrounds us all comes into focus." What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the role of the singer or the performer is almost to interpret, uh, or to find some kind of beauty, whether it's in the audience or in yourself, and almost reflect it back. And that was when I made this record called Sea. my first creative idea was to use the ocean as a kind of mirror upon which to reflect the songs the themes of the songs I was trying to sing. But yeah, no, I think that's fascinating.
And I think that's very interesting because I'm going to read another quote from him that talks about the environment and setting. Here we go. He says, "We're affected by our surroundings, and finding the best environment to create a clear channel is personal and to be tested. It also depends on your intention. Isolated places like a forest, a monastery, or a sailboat in the middle of the ocean are fine locations to receive direct transmissions from the universe." So, in the motivation for making this album, Cold Sea, how did natural landscapes, natural settings play that role for you?
Yeah, so when I wrote these songs over the period of 2 years, I found myself writing a lot up on the northern coast of Donegal, which is about 4 hours drive north of Dublin. And but I had no idea what I was writing. I was just these songs were arriving. I didn't know where they were arriving from, and I just rolled with it. I didn't even know I was writing a record. I was just writing these songs because I had to sing them. And I was really whenever I was up in places like Mallinhead, Kildare, in a show, and I had the guitar, I kind of felt that these songs were flowing. And on my mum's side, my ancestors go way, way back to that whole area. And so I kind of feel at home up there, swimming in the ocean, walking those coastlines. And I kind of became interested in the history of the area and the fact that a lot of the boats that traveled from Ireland to America to Philadelphia and beyond, that was their last stop. So they would come from Scotland, they would stop near Mallinhead, a place called Trombone Bay, and then venture on. So it kind of became this imaginative canvas for me, this area. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to take this as a blank sheet and I'm going to start painting these imagist songs. They're songs that are based very strongly on imagery. And so that when I sing these songs, they roll out like very clear cinematic films in my head. In a concert, when I'm singing any of these songs, Full Sea, it's a very personal film that's going on. It brings me back up to that landscape.
In the creation of this album, Cold Sea, what were some of your favorite things in making it? What did you really enjoy during the process?
So I have great memories of picking Steve Gunn up. So first of all, when I had written all these songs, I made a list of producers who would be my dream producer to work with. And Steve Gunn was my number one. He was the first person. I sent him a demo of October Sun, and he just wrote back saying, "I'm in." And funny, yeah, so I was thrilled. And funny enough, Steve Gunn's great grandmother emigrated to Philadelphia from Donegal, a town called Downings. And I didn't know this, so Steve told me, and that was kind of the first of many coincidences, serendipities that kind of surrounded the making of the record. So when I picked Steve Gunn up at the airport, it became this kind of road trip. We went to Donegal. We started hiring equipment because I had rented this little cottage at the side of a mountain, and my plan was to turn this cottage into a studio for 4 days. It faced the ocean, and the reason we did that was purely just to do it almost like a field recording, like an experiment. There's lots of fantastic studios in Ireland, but we thought, how about we just because the songs are so stripped back, that they weren't so stripped back. That let's just see if we can get a good performance in a little studio that we build ourselves. So that if I look back on that process, it was kind of the crazy fun and the looseness that Steve Gunn and I had, and we met this guy called Billy Robinson, who used to tour manage John Lee Hooker, and he does sound for Planet. And someone said, call down to Billy. Neil, a friend of mine called Neil McGrory, said, go to Billy. And Billy gave us this beautiful microphone and this amazing old Martin guitar. And we collected this equipment early on the second day and drove to Malin Head with all this beautiful gear in the boot, set up, started. And we knew then after the second day that this was a kind of, no matter how it sounded, this was just a really good fun thing to
do. Okay. I'm going to read you another quote. I'm finding all this very fascinating. Rick Rubin says this: crafting contains a paradox. To create our best work, we are patient and avoid rushing the process, while at the same time we work quickly without delay. By remaining too long in this phase, many pitfalls arise. One is disconnection. If an artist is creating beautiful work and keeps endlessly crafting it beyond the need, sometimes they suddenly want to start all over. This can be because they have changed or times have changed. Art is the reflection of the artist's inner and outer world during the period of creation. Do you feel that paradox when you're creating?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, I think it's very important to know when to say stop writing a record and to really get in the studio as quickly as you can. Yeah, I remember the last song I wrote for the record was Empire. And when I wrote Empire, I was like, and now I've got a record. So that was when I messaged Steve and say, how do these dates sound? And he said, yeah, let's do it. So then it was a what's the word? There was an urgency to get recording. Totally. Yeah, I couldn't have made this record if I had waited another 6 months.
With this record, what were some of the challenges in putting it all together?
Yeah, I think it was really important that we didn't, because there were so many people that were up for helping, from Donald Lunny to Tony Garnier to M. Ward, Steve Gunn as producer. Steve and I made a playlist together before we started recording. And we would send each other maybe like a recording by Nina Simone of a Leonard Cohen cover that she did. And we would, or even, we would talk about records that kept space. So sometimes when you keep adding things to a song or recording, you're actually taking away from it, rather than like a really simple stripped back performance will have more power than adding, layer on layer on layer on top of it. So that became our production kind of that became our road, a creative road, not to overcook these songs, because I wrote these songs just myself and voice. I mean, and the record I sang and performed live, so me playing and singing, it was all put down live in 2 or 3 takes. Sometimes it was the first take, most of the time it was the second take. So that became our number one focus, not to, even when Donald Lunny added this beautiful bouzouki part, M. Ward's electric guitar on the end of October Sun, stunning, but it's so simple. Steve Gunn's playing on Empire and his synth playing. It's so subtle.
But see, you have something that some musicians don't have. And that is a very strong, warm voice. So I would think some musicians hide behind some of the noise that they create, and it's more about the music. Where with you, you kind of get a nice amalgamation of both. You get that soothing vocal work and you get the instrumentation. So consider yourself very fortunate. And with that, before we actually hear a few songs from the album, what would you like the listeners to take away from listening to this album? What do you want them to experience?
Yeah, I think it's. I've left the door open on all these songs, so that there's what I think they're about is not the last word. I'd love them to bring something of their own to these songs because I've written them in that way that the listener can very much put their own meaning on these songs, and I've written them with that in mind. That these songs kind of became like strange friends to me when I was writing, and I kept the songs only that felt right, and I would sit at home by the fire at night, and these were the songs I kept coming back to. So they're like these strange little gifts. So I think I really love it when people come up after a show and say this record has means something to me. Or this song has helped me through this. I would love people to put their own meaning to the songs in a big way.
When you are writing music, are you open and cognizant to the idea of making mistakes and taking those mistakes, learning, growing from them? Or are you very hard on yourself?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, lyrics. Some of the lyrics on "Color of the Rain" and "One Hill Further," I don't know where those lines came from. They were sometimes the first line that I wrote, and I did rewrite a lot of the verses, and then I would go back to the very first line I wrote and say, no, it's got to be this line because this is the line that came out the first time. So it was really interesting as a songwriter to teach myself that to know not if a line came from somewhere that's true, don't touch it.
And Rick Rubin would say, going back to one of your earlier statements about finishing a song and finishing an album, he would say, you know when you're done when you feel it.
Absolutely, yeah, no, totally. And there were other songs that we left off this record. So it could have made the record a little bit longer, but we thought that these songs told the complete story.
Yes. And you know where that story begins? It's in the beautiful album cover done by Sinead Smith.
Yes, correct. Sinead Smith is an artist from Donegal. She's an Inishowen painter. So she's lived in Donegal near Carndonagh. She has a workshop there. People can go and do her course, and she'll teach you about the craft of painting. She's been painting Inishowen landscapes for years. Her work is amazing. So the vinyl cover is by Sinead and the back also. And Sinead came to our Donegal launch gig, and she's been one of those people that really super supportive from the get-go. From when she first heard these songs. Really, yeah. Her work is amazing. Yeah. And it gives the song, it gives the, it sits beside the songs perfectly. I was so lucky to meet her, and people should go and check out her work.
I want to go quickly back to playing these songs in a live performance, if you don't mind. So, in preparation for a show, which you had talked about, and after the show, you don't mind connecting and talking to the fans and them expressing their feelings on the show. With a live performance, do you stretch these songs out in a different way, slightly different way from what's on the album? Do you kind of expand them? Do you put in little surprises? Or are they very close to what we hear on the album?
It's very close to the record, but we have started jamming the songs out a little bit at the end. I'm performing new material now in the concerts too, and I sometimes put in a cover version of a song by a different artist. Try and mix that up every night. But funny enough, every single night a gig I'm doing for Cold Sea is completely different. That it's these songs seem to work whether it's a more kind of a listening folky vibe or whether it's more in a kind of a rock venue. It seems to work, and we kind of I'm on tour with a great double bass player called Graham, and Graham and I, yeah, depending on the room and the atmosphere, that's the way we bring the music. But in terms of my voice and my guitar, it's true to the album.
Why does Seamus Heaney impact your work?
Yeah, again, so during that period of 2 years, I kept coming back to Heaney's work, and I don't know why. I just had them all on the shelf. I found reading his poems a little bit like walking through the Donegal landscape. That his lines seem to have the texture of a field and the peat and the bog and moss on a wet stone. The way he uses language, that he would introduce a very soft line with soft sounding words, and then the next line he would cut it dead with a real sharp sounding word. And I found reading his work really fascinating because he's the ultimate craftsman. He's like one of those men who built an old Irish wall and just became a master at knowing which brick to put on which brick, which stone to put on which stone. That the wall stays strong, like a good poem is going to stay strong and survive. And since his passing, that's how I see his poems. They're like these really strong walls that have not fallen down.
I had learned in doing a little bit of research on Seamus that he had earned this award called the Truman Capote Award for Literary Criticism, the largest prize for literary criticism in English language. And I wasn't so familiar with his work. And it sounds like his poetry really resonates, not just with you, but for many, many people. So, what is it about his poetry that is so spot on? That is so that language. What makes it so muscular?
Yeah, I think he can. His words really pierce to the heart. They're very emotive. I think his poems are very moving. And I sometimes at the very last line of his poems, he flips it. So he introduces a theme, and then the last line will just leave you, a Hitchcock film. I love when he does that. Um, his songs are you could sing them. Some of them come across like songs to me. I think he has one line. It's like sing yourself to where the music comes from. I think that's a damn good thing for a musician to think about before you walk on stage. Sing yourself to the place where the music comes from. if you live by that mantra, you'll be okay.
Let's talk about two songs here. The first song we're going to listen to is Empire.
In an empty room with an endless view, with nothing to see but these empire blues. To find this place, you've come so far. Sunstone and sky scarred. Now you'll watch it fall down again. Our empire reigns.
Okay, give us a little quick backstory to Empire. Anything you want to share?
So Empire was a song. Empire was a song that I would strum that groove, that pattern, over and over and over until those words came. So there was something about that groove that I just enjoyed playing, and then those words just came, and I enjoy the way the melody changes slightly depending on the lyric and the words and the phrasing. It's not completely symmetrical. And it's kind of sung from the perspective, we mentioned Hitchcock, of a character looking down from a small window across a big landscape. Almost like at a threshold, that there's a past behind and a future ahead. And it's, yeah, but the most important thing in that song is that groove. That's
Yes. And that groove, the strum, and there are just these beautiful little flourishing. It sounds very Eno-ish to me. Maybe a little bit of Daniel Lanois' work. Just gorgeous little accented these touches.
Steve Gunn's guitar playing is really beautiful when it comes in on the second verse. He's playing a Telecaster, and when we recorded that song, it was very late one night, July night, like 11 p.m. And we recorded the song really quickly, and then Steve just started playing that electric guitar riff over and over again. Kind of became this hypnotic thing, but it's such a beautiful part. It comes in, and his mellotron part is so beautiful. I mean, that's one thing with this record, is that Steve, as producer, he got a beautiful sound. And on the first day, Steve spent a long time with this old microphone. We had an old U87 microphone that used to be in Air Studios in London. And Steve Gunn spent a lot of time positioning that microphone in a way where we got the right vocal sound and guitar sound. And then the record was done really quickly because I had the songs ready. But on Empire especially, Steve got that beautiful sound.
I find with this album, the way that you laid out and organized these tracks and sequenced them, I know musicians put a lot of time into that. Is that true for you?
Yeah, I did think about the sequencing a lot. And Steve Gunn helped me there too. And I pretty much had it done. I thought it was important to start with October Sun and then go into Color of the Rain. And then where do we go on? What's the third track? Is it One Hill Further? And then it goes to Maritime Radio, and then into Malin Empire. Malin Gale's the instrumentals, and then Trobrega Bay towards the end. It tells the full story. Yeah, absolutely. I thought about that. The instrumental Cold Sea is one of my favorite tracks. And the Maritime Radio is a lot of fun playing that live. Deirdre from the shipping radio forecaster, she has been coming to the shows. So she gets up on stage and we perform it live.
How long did it take to mix and then master this album?
Not too long. A guy called Jimmy Robertson in London mixed it. I went over to Jimmy and worked with him. We mixed it together in a few days. So that was a lot of fun mixing it. Jimmy's an amazing guy. He's worked with Arctic Monkeys and a whole load of people. Mixing it was great, really, really great. And again, there was a point where we knew that when we had a mix, when we heard the October Sun mix, we knew instantly. When I heard that mix of Empire, I knew instantly, don't touch it.
I love that. Don't touch it. It's like a good steak after it's been taken off the grill. Don't touch it. Let it sit. Let's listen to another song. This is Color of the Rain, track number 2 from the album Cold Sea.
First come the healing days, when pleas of grace are made. Trapped by the northern light, it's flooding through my mind. I saw leaves of gold burn on the lane. I saw 7 years pass in a blaze. Heard a lonesome drum out in the northern sun. And the water's carpentry, it cut the open sea. I sailed the knock of high trail.
Alrighty, this is personally one of my favorites. Give us a little history on this song.
So this song is the first time I ever tried to write a song that is a travel log across maybe 10, 20 years. So the song goes right across, living in Dublin, Naples, Liverpool, London, and back to Dublin. So it's each line kind of it kind of spans across the years. Usually I write a song about one thing, one moment. But this one was the melody came really quickly one night at like 4 a.m. The guitar was tuned really strangely, and I just started. I didn't fix it. I just started strumming it, and came up with that riff and that melody. And then I spent weeks writing those words. And these images came of busking and playing, living down by the river in Liverpool and in Naples and in Dublin. So it was kind of this triangle across 15, 20 years of life. And then I'm singing in a register that I'd never really recorded it. Yeah. So, and I thought about changing it, but I decided not to. So I'm singing up there. And that's a lot of fun in concerts, performing that song.
Wow. One thing I notice about this album, and what I love about some songs, when you punctuate the ending of these songs, when you close the curtains, there's space for the listener to go, and think about what they just heard. Was that conscious?
Mm-hmm. Totally, yeah. Especially with Color of the Rain, that I could. There's no point in me spelling out exactly what I think the song is about. It's like a line like the water's carpentry, cup the open sea. The song is all based around that line. That's the crucial line of that song. It's, um, and yeah, totally. I left the door of meaning open in these songs on purpose, so that people can bring more to the songs, and so that I in concerts can keep exploring what they're about. I'm still trying to work out what these songs are about, and in a way, I think I'll know more in 10 years, because these songs all came in a really particular way, and unusually they're all connected. So I think in a few years I'll look back and go, so that's what that song is about. But I'm really enjoying playing these songs every night in concert because they're evolving now on stage.
Okay, if there are any teachers listening to this podcast, I'm going to challenge you right now. I would like for you to bring Oisin's music into your classroom. It doesn't matter if they're 5-year-old or 18-year-olds, and have them sit down and listen to this music and have them come up with their own interpretations. And maybe for the little ones, they could draw what they're hearing. Maybe for the older ones, you talk about figurative language. It's all on this album. And I'm going to ask you this final question with regards to this album, Cold Sea. It may be an odd question, but I just want to know, do you think this music can be very therapeutic for people?
Yeah, I hope it is. I hope, because bizarrely for me, they're so cathartic for me to sing these songs. So Trobrega Bay is like my own blues. And when I come out the other end of Trobrega Bay, I feel better. So I really hope in concert that people take something from these songs. Yeah, singing these songs, well, playing music full stop makes me feel better, But singing these songs in particular is really good for me. I love singing these songs, So I'm really enjoying these concerts, and yeah, if an audience member or someone who hears this record and takes something away from these songs, makes them feel better, that's huge to me. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like some of these songs are helping you exorcise some demons at all?
Yeah. I don't know if it's demons. It's more, they're kind of like, these songs help. I think folk music and songs in general will help you navigate your life. I think great old. Look at the old Irish folk songs, like listening to Liam Clancy and Tommy Makem and old Van Morrison songs and Planksty, listening to Andy Irvine. It's going to enrich your life, and playing music is good for the soul. So these are my very personal blues, and playing them helps me. It gives me bizarrely this energy back. So it's kind of, singing them feels good. Otherwise, I wouldn't sing them.
Alrighty, before we move into the bonus round of this conversation, what's coming down the line in 2024 and beyond for you?
So at the moment, I'm doing a radio show called Caravan Radio with Oisin Leech on RTE, Radio 1, and that finishes up soon. I've got 2-3 shows, and then I start a big tour. I go to Scotland, England, playing in chapel, all around England, and go to Scotland with Gaz Coombs from Supergrass. And then I come back and play Whelan's in Dublin. Then I play a hometown show in County Meath, Solstice. Then I go to Spain And then I'm probably going to get back in the studio. So busy few weeks ahead.
Wait, you're forgetting one place. San Francisco.
Got to come to San Fran. I can't wait to tour over there, actually. There are plans afoot. Yeah. So when I hear for sure, I'll let you know. But it'd be fantastic to come over there. The venue called the Chapel. Is there the Chapel in San Francisco? A small venue.
That is a magnificent venue. Yes, wonderful, wonderful place. Fabulous. Okay. Tell the listeners some albums you'd like to recommend and why.
Yeah, so when you messaged me, William, I picked out some records. I'll just briefly go through. Your listeners probably have all these, but Andy Irvine, Paul Brady, the Purple Album. That's one of my favorites, and such a special record. I mean, it's got so many classics on it, and Andy Irvine and Paul Brady, you got some good style going on back here. It's Andy Irvine, who was member of Planxty, and Paul Brady, solo artist and songwriter, a great traditional Irish musician, but also great songwriter. And then same with Andy Irvine, two legends of music. They came together and made this album in the 70s, and it's become a classic. I really recommend this record. This is probably my favorite Van Morrison album. It's called Weed Fleece. It's an album he made when he was traveling around Ireland by car with a buddy and writing these songs. And then he came back to San Francisco, near where you are. And he had his own studio north of San Francisco. And he made this record. It's a beautiful Lyndon Arden stole the highlights. Amazing song. The way he sings on this record, there seems to be a lot of improvisation. Recorded at Caledonia Studios, California. And beautiful, beautiful record. And then this is the big one for me, just as a Bob fan, Freewheeling record. From Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, to Girl from the North Country, to Hard Rain. These are songs I still sing in the local pubs here in Ireland. That as a songwriter, that record blew open the door. So those three classics would be the first three I went for.
Andy Irvine, the great Irish singer. Thank you for sharing, and gives the listeners some homework, good homework to do. I'm going to ask you quick, rapid-fire questions. You just tell me what comes to the top of your head. Are you ready? Here we go. Do you have a nickname?
Joey Procida.
Is your bed made right now?
Probably not.
What dish do you like to cook the best?
Caprese salad.
Do you have a favorite Disney character?
No.
What never fails to make you laugh?
The Marx Brothers.
If you were to write a book, what would it be about?
Traveling, playing music.
Do you have any pets?
No.
Are you tech savvy?
No.
Have you ever won a contest?
I won a playwriting competition when I was 15.
Oisin, would you ever skydive?
No.
Do you like clothes shopping?
Not these days.
Prefer summer or winter?
Winter.
Work or play?
A little bit of both.
Fresh food or fried food?
Fresh food.
Are you more cautious or bold?
A little bit of both.
You see a pool. Cannonball into the pool or dip a toe in first?
Probably sit down beside it and have a cocktail.
love it. I'll be happy to join you on that one. Oisin, thank you so much for being part of Surprise Cast. I greatly appreciate listening to some of the stories and what went on in the making of this album and your life growing up in Ireland, and looking forward to learning more about your work as you continue to progress as a solo artist. You can check out his music on Spotify, Bandcamp, Apple. It's all there. Go to his website. Tour dates are there. And I'm going to leave the listener and you with something to think about. Don't respond. Again, this comes from The Creative Active Way of Being, written by Rick Rubin, legendary producer. He says this: the reason we are alive is to express ourselves in the world. And creating art may be the most effective and beautiful method of doing so. Art goes beyond language, beyond lives. It is a universal way to send messages between each other and through time. Thank you, everyone. My name is W, also known as William, host of the High Art on the Edge page, host of Surprise Cast. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, great music is all around us. You just have to keep your ears open. Ciao.
Turned your back to abandon each and every one.